Howdy. One
Tanya.
second. Let me just get. Hi.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I love the Zeppelin. Bit of Zeppelin behind you.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good. Busy. All good stuff though.
Yes, of course. Yeah. In your line of work, you'd want to be busy, I'm sure. Yeah. Probably
Yeah,
not doing too many of these things though. So thank you so much for
doing
jumping
a,
on and
yeah, as
hanging out
many
with us
as
here.
many of the cool ones as possible, the cool
Yes.
people.
Yes. And how good does it feel to be back playing your music to people? Like how
It's
good is that? Can it
I
even be
mean
put into words?
I mean, being back out this summer in Europe was because European festivals have always been my favorite. Like that whole scene over there, especially for
Yeah.
rock and roll. It
And
was
I wonder what
amazing.
that is. Like literally every musician I talk to, they always say like there's
Same,
something different
same.
about Europe. There's
Uh,
something like they go crazy.
they do, and it's just it's also like the festivals themselves are the best organized. Like they're just really like really well organized machines in general. And then, but there's also like you have to take into account the fact that people haven't been able to go to live concerts and like mass gatherings like that for like 2 years. So
Couple
the
years.
energy was
Yeah.
was double what it usually is. So, and I mean, and then you're playing with, Tommy Aldridge in a rhythm section. So you add that and it's good times.
I know, no doubt, right? Like and what's that first show like? Like does anything kind of specifically stand out from like the first show back?
Oh yeah, because it was in Ireland. It was my
Nice.
first time home in 2.5 years because I wasn't able to travel because the travel bans during COVID and my visa category. So I was like sort of stuck in the US per se. I'd usually be home once or twice a year. So opening night, and that's when David called me first to do the gig. It was very funny. It was like, well, you're gonna have to say yes because we opened in Dublin. I was like, oh shit, cool, okay. So opening night was at home, so it was a very emotional one for me because it was like baptism by fire though because it's the first show together. That's where everybody's like all the tech issues happen, like everything's this is that, and you're ironing out all the kinks as a band, getting to know each other. But it was amazing because Ireland was just like on fire for the fact that it was like one of their own in Whitesnake. So it was my whole town was there.
Incredible. That's so incredible. Like, did you lose any of I don't even know how to say it. Like, did you lose your muse, I guess, so to speak, like over the quarantine time for the pandemic? Like, what a shit show.
Not at all, because for anyone that follows me and knows me, I do a lot of other things. I'm very heavily advanced, just like plant-based projects, and I have like a TV show. I'm really involved in that side of things. So like even this week, working with think tanks and strategists on all these side projects that I do in the plant-based world, and how do we save the planet basically. So as soon as COVID hit, because I had not come off the road for almost 10 years with different bands, I was just touring like crazy. And the longest gap I would have between like gigs that I had was at the most maybe 2 months, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and I was out again. So when it hit first, it was a shock, like for everybody. But then it was this thing of like, oh my God, it's kind of nice to be in one place for a second, to stop, to breathe, and to go all these projects that you've been trying to push while you're on the road, to jump back in. Because my passion long before I picked up a bass guitar was like environmental, animal rights, all this world that I work in on the side, and how can I use my platform
Yeah.
to shout about this message a little. And so yeah, it was actually a very productive sort of lockdown for me. And plus I was living in California, so I'm out hiking every day. And I felt bad for people in cities that hadn't got that. But I tend to try, it was, everyone was like wondering what the hell was going on at the beginning, but I tried to always find there's got to be a silver lining here. What's the positive? And for me, it was a great use of time being in one place, not being in a different time zone every day. So
Mm.
I got a lot rallied together with like the Highway to Health project, and then another plant-based project that I have with a group of friends all around the world. So it was interesting, but it was tough that I couldn't see my family because I literally couldn't leave the US because I wouldn't be allowed to re-enter. So that was complicated. But
Right.
you got to make the best of each situation. So it was weird, and it's obviously like you're like, are we ever going to tour again?
Yeah.
And then when the first call back is Whitesnake, you're like, all right, this is good.
Let's do this. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, for me, the silver lining was definitely, like I had to work from, obviously I work from home with my podcast in the studio, but like, I'm also a teacher for the radio course at BCIT here in Vancouver.
Oh, awesome.
So, but I had to do that from home because, like nobody can be in the same studio together. Nobody can, like trying to like troubleshoot, troubles with like boards and equipment and shit via face, like they're holding the camera over to the left a little bit. Nope, not too far, over to the right now. But yeah, so good to be out of it, I guess.
Yeah. Human interaction is best in person. We're all over the Zoom thing.
Yeah, I know. And so what was the music like in your house as a kid growing up?
So I definitely got like the sort of subconscious love of music, because I didn't pick up a bass until I was 17. But my dad, I'm super late to music. It's hilarious. Like
drums, maybe? Like, was there something musical before that? Nothing.
I'm not the bass player who played guitar first. I was working in an animal rescue shelter for 10 years. Wow. And everyone thought I would be a vet or a marine biologist. And then I picked up a bass when I was 17, and I was like, oh shit, I love this. Yeah. But my dad has a very deep rooted love of music, although nobody plays music in my direct family. So I grew up with his vinyl collection, definitely, like subconsciously, the Zeppelins, the Floyd, like everything across, like Willie Nelson, like real country, as I call it, not like manufactured pop country. But that was definitely like coming in through my childhood. So then when I did pick up a bass and get into music, I was sort of familiar with so many things, but I wasn't paying attention until I was 16 or 17. But my little town is very musical. So I was always surrounded by musicians, and like Mullingar is known for musicians coming out of it. So all your friends are all in bands. I worked in the bars that the bands played in, but yeah, it was really 180 at about 17 when I picked up a bass. I was like, oh, I really like this. And then I was joining bands left, right, and center, and it was just like,
way we go. Yeah, that's cool. And so would you think, like, for me, thinking back, like some of my first musical memories would be like just that, what you were saying, looking through my mom had this big hassock, and it was full of, Zeppelin and the Wings and Eagles, and going back to maybe Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton.
Oh yeah,
country
Dolly
stuff.
Parton.
Like what would be your first musical memory? Like, is it that flipping through your folks' LP?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of two separate things when I think of it. So there's like, it's not that I was flipping through, because I was paying no attention to music, because I was always all animals. So if you look at all my childhood photos, it's just animals, rescue shelters, like all that. But obviously that music being played by my dad was coming in. But then by the time I was a teenager and my friends were musicians, it was more like the 90s metal prog stuff. I was really into, Tool and all that heavy stuff like Slayer, Pantera. I was way more into that at the beginning. Although I did do a stint with like Spice Girls and Eminem also being my favorite things.
Right, of course. Of course.
I love it all. Catchy melody, right?
Yeah.
But so it's kind of like two things, it's like subconsciously that stuff playing in the background, like the Eagles and Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and all that, it stood to me later, because then when I became a musician, took a 180 and became a musician, but what I was listening to, like in the you're not listening to me teenage years, was definitely more in the sort of prog and heavy. I was always into like Slayer, Pantera. I was into Opeth big time. I was into Gojira, all these, like, which I still am.
Right.
And also like Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong and Miles Davis is my favorite. So I have like total musical bipolar.
Yeah. I'm kind of like that too. My parents were all over the map, and now therefore I am. I wanted to share something real quick with you, as you're a Pantera fan. Of course, I'm a huge Pantera fan too.
Awesome.
These are from Vinnie Paul's
nice
snare, the snare drum after he'd passed.
Oh wow.
And these were the sticks sitting on the snare drum.
Oh, how'd you get your hands on those babies?
From a mutual buddy. So
Tech.
it was like
You got it from a tech.
he's like, yeah, hey, I might be able to grab you something. And then it was the drummer of Biff Naked, a guy named Chico.
Nice.
Who grabbed that for me. So
oh, that's great. Well, we do the Dime Bash thing at NAM every year.
That's right.
Well, when NAM was still NAM,
and
and the last one before COVID hit, it's actually, we were also filming it. We did an amazing like gathering. I brought Derek from Sepultura and Roy from Stone Sour, and we had Dave Grohl on the stage. It was amazing because it's just like, it's for, you know, Vinny and Dime. Right. So it's super fun getting everyone together and doing that.
I know, and like there's a chance, because everybody thinks like, oh well, yeah, get all those people together, it's going to be amazing, but there is like a chance.
Oh, sometimes it's a total train wreck.
Totally.
No, seriously, sometimes it's a total train wreck, and it's really funny because I think a lot of, especially like some of the guys who are like in these bands, I don't know if they're just presuming that they will remember the parts.
Right. It's because you're a good player, doesn't.
Yeah. We were even joking about it, like in Whitesnake rehearsals. Like Reb was like, "Do you really know this stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, do you want me to show you this part?"
Yeah.
Because awesome. You know, same like in bands I was in, you're like, "Oh, I've been in this for a while, I'll just remember it." And you know, we should always refresh.
Yeah. Don't rely on the old muscle memory.
No, never.
What was the first concert that you went to?
The first one, I mean, there was a lot of small gigs because again, Ireland has, you know, a lot of venues, and I was going to a lot of smaller like singer-songwriter stuff. An Irish band called Keela I used to follow everywhere. I adore them. They're like a traditional band, but on a bigger scale, the first gig I remember is the Chili Peppers, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, in like Croke Park, and it was like, I was obsessed with John Frusciante and his guitar playing and his harmonies. So that was like, it was funny because everyone would think I wasn't playing bass yet.
Yeah.
So I wasn't like into Flea for being a Flea. I was just like obsessed with this harmony singing guitar player. But yeah, the Chili Peppers is I remember.
Or you're kind of,
and it was everything from there. It was like smaller men would have all like the super heavy bands that came to town.
Yeah, I got to go for the heavy ones. I remember in the early '90s when the Peppers would play, and like they headlined like Lollapalooza, Pearl Jam, and Ministry and Soundgarden.
Ministry, yeah.
Like Ice Cube, it was pretty bad.
I know.
Right? And
it's so funny now.
Like, to have a longevity like that, where like like they have had hits along the way. Like that's 30 years.
I know, it's incredible, and it's funny now because I think back to like, because a lot of these guys are my friends now. That we, you know, we're touring the same circles, and I was even saying this to Alex Skolnick not that long ago. Like I remember going to see Testament when I was a teenager and being like, "This is so cool," and now like they're super close friends, and but they're still like kicking ass, and they're so consistent. Those type of bands, like their fan base is so consistent, and they consistently give back to the fans by doing, you know, great albums and great tours. So the best of memories. But yeah, like to have longevity like that, you know, has to be a band of brothers, because it's complicated touring.
Well, I mean, I've heard from so many musicians that, you know, it's like you and your wife, and then add 2 more people into it, or 3.
Oh my God, it's like, I always joke about it. It's literally like way more complicated than I can imagine a marriage is, or, you know, it's like you're married to a group of people living together, often on a tour bus.
Fair amount of compromising, I would think.
Yeah. Your people skills are what are most important touring, which is hysterical. Like it's all about psychology, right? The music is the easy part.
Right. It's the other 18 hours of the day.
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't generally ask this, but I want to ask because of your answer for the music that you grew up with. Give us the 3 albums that you would need on a deserted island.
Ooh, Fleetwood Mac, Rumors. Yes. Jeff Buckley, Grace. Probably. I'm a big Jeff Buckley, Grace fan, and I mean, because I'm just trying to think, if I'm on a desert island, do I really want to listen to like blast beats, or maybe I do.
Oh,
I think
I I missed that. Your video lagged there. I missed that. What was the last
Oh,
one?
sorry. I was trying to decide between Zeppelin or Gojira, which would motivate me most to build a ship and get off.
Right. Yes. Yeah,
Two mellows that you can sing along with while you're foraging on your island, and one like that gets you going.
Yeah. Your testimonials, by the way, on your website, like straight up, we're talking about rock gods like Maynard James Keenan, Dee Snider, like Steve Adler, Nuno Betancourt. Like what a trip! Like what a crazy life you live.
Sometimes I'm still, and it's funny because you're the second person this week on a podcast that's brought. I haven't looked at my own website in so long, and thank you for reminding me because I really need to update it. But it is funny because when I have any moments of like doubt about what am I doing or have I actually achieved anything, I forget that these guys are, and I played with them all, and they're now friends, and they've great support, and they to be there and to say those things themselves with no. I didn't ask them to. It's just, I know, right? Like I'm putting a website together and I'm putting a reel together, and people are like, oh my God, you need to get testimonials, and everyone's offering these kind words that I've worked with them. It's brilliant. And Maynard's will always be the funniest.
It's so good.
You just reminded me of like the balls. Like, how do you say it in Spanish? I forgot about that. Thanks for the memory.
Yeah, it's so good. And like, because of that, I was like, I started like really digging in and watching some of the videos, like that M3 Fest you're playing with Steve Adler. Like,
oh yeah.
And like, how cool is it to be playing with the original, drummer of Appetite?
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you heard that album and how it fucking blew your mind? Like,
I was actually talking to Duff about this one time. We were in a lobby in the same place. I'm like, my God, those bass lines, because quite often what you do as a session musician, like if you're getting a gig, especially if there's not much running time into it, or you're like, okay, I'm going to put these like few weeks before the gig, I'm going to learn everything. And I remember when I was first starting with Adler, because I was only supposed to fill in, I was like, oh, I'll jump in on a few gigs, and then I ended up doing a bunch of shows, but I didn't leave enough running time. I was coming off another gig, and when I started really listening, because obviously you've heard the songs, these bass lines are like jazz parts. They're really, really intricate and cool and creative, and it's just a whole other. It's not like it's straightforward rock bass line. So it's just fantastic, and to be able to play them, to listen to that album, and then to play them with Stephen, so that actual feel is there. Because he, that push and pull between the drummer and bass player is obviously what makes that rhythm section. But I love it, and my big thing always is like my job is to honor the music, so I need to be as close as possible to the original feel and style, obviously with my own flair or whatever on stage and that. And I love that. I love, like, it's almost like a time, like I had such a great time learning Neil Murray's bass parts, because he's such a beautiful player that a lot of people will jump into these gigs and kind of learn it, but not really listen to the little intricacies and the little nuances that are in the bass playing. So I really enjoy that, especially with these like iconic albums that you're doing, like Whitesnake or Guns N' Roses, or even the Twisted Sister stuff. So yeah, it's pretty rad then to go and play it with the original.
I know, right? Like, yes, you'll get the other rhythm section, it's being thrown down the way it's supposed to be played, It's
exactly.
Pretty awesome. Fair to say you've had some incredible, career highlights over the years. Could you pick like just one, if you had to pick one memory, or is that impossible?
I mean, there's a couple, because they're slightly different. Like when I was like a deer in headlights, I was only 20 or 21 when I was in the studio with Maynard. And that was trippy, because the first time he sang on front of me in the studio, and we're, collaborating on ideas, myself and Josh and himself, that was really wow, because I've been listening to him for so many years, and then he's sitting there singing in front of me, just in the creative process, like any musician, just like coming up with ideas. So that always sticks out, because that was like, oh wow, this could be a big deal if I get myself into the US and circles. So that's like a studio memory. Playing like Hellfest with Dee Snider was amazing. I always remember that one in particular, because we had like a crazy routing problem to get there, and we all almost didn't make it, and it was like
Yeah.
we were lost in the middle of France, and it was one of those like running on the stage, and it was just amazing. But and then obviously like opening night in Ireland with Whitesnake will always be so surreal. And we finished the European tour by closing out with Steve Vai at Hellfest. So it was Steve Vai came on stage with us, and I played Still of the Night with Steve Vai, and I was just like, is this actually happening? It's like Tommy Aldridge, David Coverdale, and Steve Vai. I'm like, who teleported me into this situation?
I know, right?
So yeah, there's a couple, but they're like my top three.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I'd love to get a little bit outside of music for a bit, if that's cool.
Absolutely.
What are you binge watching lately?
Honestly, I very rarely turn on a TV.
Really?
I'm a book hoarder.
So,
I do watch documentaries. I'm not a big TV watcher because I'm honestly just so busy by the end of the day. Sometimes I like, okay, when Breaking Bad came out, I fell into that for sure, but I can't remember the last time I watched TV.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a big reader, and definitely documentaries. Like I'd watch documentaries for sure, but you'll very rarely find me in front of a TV.
Oh, interesting. So what book are you currently reading then?
I mean, there's about 4 at once.
You're one of those. You go nice. I can't do that. If I'm reading a
Yeah.
book, I got to read the book. Like I can't.
You're
focus.
right. I mean, I'm also studying a lot of the time because there's topics that I'm like honing in on studying for projects. But like I'm a big fan of Sam Harris, of Mo Gaudat. I'm reading 2 of their books at the moment. However Long the Night, which is an incredible book I'm just finishing now. I mean, Yuval Noah Harari. It's usually like psychology, theology, like a lot of that, because you can implement a lot of this learning into the projects, and like people that I'm working with, and culture stuff, and obviously the plant-based world, and a lot of food science books. So I'm just a fucking dork. I'm not cool at all. Like people think I'm out partying with rock
You're
stars.
outing
Like,
yourself right now, right? Like,
I'm probably studying food science. I'm a total dork. So yeah, I could be. We were just joking with my friend that I'm working with this week. We were exchanging our Audible lists to see like who was the bigger nerd.
nice.
So yeah. I could name books all day long, but yeah.
Yeah. Favorite land animal, favorite water animal.
Oh wow. I love pigs. I love pigs. They're a big passion for me. I love all animals, obviously. Like anyone that knows me, I'm a vegan animal rights activist my whole life, but pigs particularly because I just think they're so smart. I've worked with pigs a lot, and I worked in shelters, and they're really, really funny characters. And obviously we treat them like shit in the world, so that's a lot of my fight for them. And favorite, it's hard. I mean, sea animal, I'm like, save the oceans as well, working on all these other.
Oh, your video's cutting out again.
I've always had a thing for orcas. I love orcas. Yeah, orcas are a big love of mine.
I had one of the coolest moments with orcas up the Queen Charlotte's in BC. I was at a fishing resort or whatever it's called, and we're fishing for salmon, and we're like, oh, let's go to another place. And so we started, getting pretty fast in this boat, and I don't like it sounds like I'm lying, but probably like a pod of 10 to 12, 14 orcas, and they kept on coming right near the boat and cresting. Like it was the coolest thing.
I'd just be crying. I just like every time I see anything like that, I'm just like, whoa.
I wish I had the video, because I have a couple of videos, and it like they're so close. But looking back now, I'm like, man, that's kind of almost scary. Like they could have, tipped the boat or something, or like, but yeah, orcas,
they're just fucking with you. They're like, let's go close enough to scare us.
Totally.
As hell. Like,
yeah, totally.
That's amazing. Yeah. But it's funny because I work, I've been on board with Sea Shepherd, and they're good friends of mine. I've done a lot of like campaign help with them because they're my kind of direct action group out there saving the oceans. But I have always suffered extremely bad seasickness. So it's like this running joke because I keep going out. I'm like, I'm going to get over it. If I keep doing it, I won't be sick. I try everything. And every time I go out, like I'm so sick that by the time there's a pod of whales or something, I'm off getting sick.
Yeah.
I'm like, one of these days, my body will allow me not to be seasick. So it's kind of become really funny. It's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be on the boat.
Yeah, I'm knock wood, like one of those guys that I've never ever been seasick. I just doesn't bother me. And I guess that's just some people are like that, right?
We'll get there.
Yeah. Are you a big sports fan? Oh, your videos.
No. I going to get. I don't know why. I'm sorry. That's too bad. I'm not, but I like the energy of going to games. I used to be a big rugby fan. Rugby was definitely something I was into because it was, it's definitely more prominent in Ireland. I had a lot of friends and I played it a little when I was younger, but sports I never really kept, but I like going with my friends to games and stuff. It's fun. I like the atmosphere.
Yeah. All right, I'll wrap it up with one oddball question for you, or a story, I guess. Not more of a story, not a question. Share a near-death story with us, like where holy shit, I could have just died.
Oh wow. Trying to think. It's been a couple of questionable tour bus drivers.
Yeah.
Like I do remember being in where were we? I feel like we were somewhere, maybe Germany, when I was with Dee Snider. I must ask Jason Sutter about this actually, because it was like an in and out quick, and we had to, we finished the gig, get back to the hotel. It's 1 a.m. and we have to leave at like 4 a.m. It's lobby call, so you like get yourself ready and leave. But I remember that we had a really questionable driver getting us to the airport, and it was the middle of the night, and he kept swerving off the road. And so there's been a few of those. And then I also remember being on a very dodgy flight with Dee and Danny, our tour manager, and we're like, they're like, sit down and strap in. You're like,
totally.
What's happening? And you're like bouncing out of the seat. So I'd like to not have any more of those experiences. But a few like driver experiences where they were tired and it was a bit, oh God. So you stay up all night on the tour bus and like prod the driver and talk to them and ask them questions and give them
keep them awake. Please don't kill everybody.
Yeah.
Tanya, thank you so much again for jumping on Zoom here with us today. You're easy to find on Instagram, Tanya O'Callaghan _official. Of course, a simple search of your name will find you on Facebook. You've got your website as well. It's been a real treat. It's been a real honor for us to have you here. So appreciate that so much.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. And I guess we'll see you online.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Have a great day.